This is my first time here, but to walk through and smell these orange blossoms on this glorious day, thank you for sharing this with me, and thank you for the invitation, Kathy. As Kathy said, I'm a deputy district attorney for the San Diego District Attorney's Office, so I'm always curious what the community's perception is. So I start with a pop quiz, okay? This is always very enlightening for me and for you. How many deputy district attorneys do we have in San Diego County? Throw out a number. 100? Two? 25. I always say my mother would be even more proud of me if there were only 2 of us. I'm not that special. One of my former colleagues is actually back there collecting diapers. But there are about 320 deputy district attorneys in San Diego County. So San Diego is actually one of the largest counties in the whole country. It's about the size of Connecticut. I'm a New Yorker. You might detect that accent here or there. If I get emotional, you'll hear the accent. But I was interested when I moved out here. And so we have a huge county, and we have, I work downtown at the Hall of Justice on West Broadway. That's our biggest office, but we have a courthouse in Chula Vista. We have El Cajon. We have the Vista Courthouse up here, which if it was by itself, I'm told it would be in the top 10 largest DA's offices in the country. And then we have a juvenile division. So there's lots of us. We are all civil servants. We work for the county. We're deputy district attorneys. And where it's confusing because when you travel around the country, we all have different names. You see prosecutors on TV, so people get confused with titles. There is only one district attorney. Who's our district attorney? Right, Summer Stephan. And I couldn't be here without Summer's support. I'm here for Summer on behalf of Summer, and we are lucky here in San Diego. Summer was a career prosecutor at the San Diego DA's office. So she came up for 30 years in the ranks, and you watch the news, you see what's happening around the country. They're having some social experiments in their district attorney's offices, and the results have been mixed. So we are very fortunate that Summer is so passionate. She's passionate about elder abuse, and so she wants us out here, not in the courtroom, but out here educating the community, because while we are really good at prosecuting people and holding them accountable, especially when it comes to elder abuse, prevention, and Summer has her 3 P's, but prevention is really where we could have the greatest impact. And I'm here to talk mostly today about fraud and scams, and I can tell you that despite the inroads we're making, and San Diego is really the tip of the spear in this fight nationally against these elder scams. But in spite of our success, the sad reality is that in 99.9% of cases still, that once your money's gone, we can't get it back. In a very short amount of time, the money is overseas and it's out of the reach of even the FBI. So the best thing that we can do is to educate everyone. And I want to tell you, I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to tell you that you're going to hear some scary things perhaps, but you're going to walk out of here feeling very emboldened and very smart, and feel like you have the tools to not become the next victim of this, because it's so rampant and it's everywhere. And so that's why it's so important. When it comes to elder abuse, it's very important for us to understand elder abuse dynamics. And the thing that is working against us the most with elder abuse is what we call under-reporting. We only know about 1 in every 20 cases of elder abuse. That's what the research and our practice tells us. What does that mean? Well, it means that a majority, 19 out of 20 victims of all kinds of elder abuse, will never pick up the phone and call for help. Why? Yeah, shame, embarrassment, fear. Of course, it is scary. And when we're talking about the different types of elder abuse that we see, We handle physical elder abuse, which could be assault of someone who's 65 and older is how the California legislature defines it. 60 and older in some cases. And we're not going to really focus on that type of abuse, but if you're curious, the most common type of cases that we see where someone would actually be physically abusive to a senior is a family member. And it's typically an adult child or grandchild that is suffering from mental health issues like bipolar, schizophrenia, battling drug or alcohol addiction. So, that answer, when I tell people I'm the elder abuse prosecutor, people always say, who could do such a thing? That's the answer to that question when it comes to physical abuse. And then we have neglect. Elder neglect is another form of abuse where people depend on others for their needs, and those needs might not be getting met, whether it's nutrition, housing, hygiene, medical care. So we get those cases, and sometimes those cases pop up on the news. Luckily, we don't get a ton of those cases. There are so many points of contact with the healthcare system that a lot of those cases end up on the radar before they get too bad. But we do see occasionally terrible situations, and those cases sometimes wind up at the DA's office. We have elder domestic violence and elder sexual assaults. Just because people are aging out does not mean they're immune from those regular types of crimes that could happen to any of us. So we deal with those cases. And then, of course, financial elder abuse. And that could take shape in a lot of ways. So here in San Diego, the cases that we actually spend most of our time on prosecuting, so these are actual cases where there's a bad guy or girl here in San Diego that is the defendant, right? That the police can investigate and bring their case to the district attorney's office to prosecute. You probably won't be surprised to hear that most of those defendants are also family members. Almost 60% of the cases involve, again, children, grandchildren who are suffering from some sort of deficit with whether it's addiction or mental health issues. And they could do anything from stealing a check, taking the debit card, low-level theft, ATM withdrawals, and this goes all the way up to sophisticated fraud where they're trying to get, the deed to the house and things like that. So we have very basic theft all the way up to very complex fraud. We do see some caregiver theft, and I caution talking about it because caregivers, again, 99% of them are incredible people that are really doing God's work, taking care of people with their most intimate needs as they require it, as they reach that point in their life. Or maybe it's temporary. Maybe you have a surgery and someone comes into the house for a few weeks. And so there are bad apples, right? In all of our lines of work, there are bad apples, and we do have occasionally, same thing, caregivers that might, I was surprised when I started doing this to learn that it's very common when you have a caregiver that you need to give your debit card to the caregiver to go to CVS to pick up your prescriptions. So what we see is often someone testing the waters. They'll take the debit card and maybe they'll start and buy some groceries. Oh, no one noticed. Oh, let me go to the ATM machine and take out a couple $100. And it's interesting, most of the cases that we have is when an adult child who lives on the other side of the country has been checking the bank statements, and they'll say, oh my gosh, over the last 6 months, there's $50,000 that's been spent, withdrawn. That's usually how the cases happen because the caregivers will test the water until they realize no one's looking at the bank statements, and they'll end up taking lots of money. The other thing we see occasionally is stolen jewelry. My tip, especially here, we're talking to the women of Nativity with your heirlooms and wonderful sentimental items. My suggestion to you, if you have not done so already, is take a photographic or a video inventory. Invite your family, your daughters over, your granddaughters, and make a day of it. But you'd be surprised how many women we have that might have some treasured engagement ring for 40 years that goes missing, and they don't have a good picture of it. And they'll be looking for a wedding photo where they could zoom in maybe and say, here, this is it. We're squinting to see. Because most people that steal jewelry have to get value for it and wind up going to a pawn shop. And it's actually very well documented once these items wind up at a pawn shop. So that's a tip. Beyond getting a safe or something like that, take a nice photographic inventory of your things and share them with your family members. So those are some tips on the things that could happen here. In addition, financial cases, financial elder abuse, we get professionals like insurance or financial advisors, people selling annuities and things like that. So there are local scammers. We have a lot of cases involving unscrupulous or unlicensed contractors. We get a lot of cases like that. The most common types of activity are contractors that will give an estimate and take a large down payment and then disappear. That's the most common type of case. And a lot of times they're knocking on doors and they're saying, oh, your driveway has cracks in it, needs to be paved, or they'll try to fool you. They will actually drive around neighborhoods looking for seniors, and then they'll say, I'm with the company that installed the air conditioning here 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or I put this roof on and we're here to service it. And they climb up on the roof and they say, oh, you're not going to believe this. You have a huge hole that we need to fix. So they're very clever. The bottom line there is we want to get references. We want to make sure that people are licensed through the Contractor State Licensing Board. And I was shocked to hear this because I've done home improvement projects and I didn't know this, but it's against the law for a contractor to take more than, I think it's $1,500 as a down payment, $1,000 as a down payment. That's shocking because that's the way that most of these people get us is they'll say, oh, you need a new fence? Okay, well, I have to go to Home Depot and buy the fence, so I need $5,000 for the parts I need to buy. That's illegal. If you're a licensed contractor, they need to front that money. So, and if you're doing a large enough project, then you should be dealing with insurance bonds and things like that, because if you're doing a $100,000 kitchen remodel and the contractor says, okay, I need $20,000 to start, that might not sound too crazy. But if that person just leaves and maybe they're not a bad guy, right? Maybe they blow their knee out and they're not on their feet for 6 months. So we have to protect ourselves by educating ourselves. And because of this job, I learn things every day. I would have never have known that. And you could tell your contractor, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to pay that much money. Start the job and we'll pay as we go. So anyway, those are all types of cases that we see and we typically prosecute. But I'm here to talk to you about the most frustrating part of being a prosecutor, which are these scams from abroad. Why is it frustrating as a prosecutor? Well, because as a prosecutor, we like holding people accountable. And for years, we would come out into the community like this and talk to people, and I'd tell them about all the cases we're working on at our office, and people wanted to hear about the scams more than anything. And I had like this epiphany 5 years ago, and I was saying, everybody wants to talk about these scams, but I've never prosecuted one. I've never had a case show up in my office. And I was like, why is that? Well, there's a simple answer, right? If you go to the police department and you talk to the chief of the police or the sheriff, and they'll say, well, we're not sending these cases to the district attorney's office because there's no one to prosecute. The bad guys are all overseas. And the San Diego Police Department or the San Diego Sheriff, they can't fly to India and kick a door down and serve a search warrant or arrest someone, or Africa or the Caribbean. So people are reporting the cases to the police and there's nothing they can do with them. They're kind of just going in the file. So that started this initiative about 5 years ago. Summer Stephan was the leader behind this. and got together with the local San Diego FBI and said, we need to be cooperating. We need to understand all this activity better, and we need to know how much of this activity is happening in San Diego. And so we started what's called the San Diego Elder Justice Task Force. And it brings together everyone, all the local police agencies, the FBI, our office. And the first task that Summer gave us was find out how big of a problem this is in San Diego, because we can't ask for resources to fight this unless we know how big the problem is. Well, we got to work and we were very proud, collaborating with Adult Protective Services and all these partners in getting the number of losses and cases in the county. But as proud as we were that we got that number, our jaws were on the floor. Does anyone want to guess the amount of money leaving the bank accounts of seniors in San Diego County alone last year? Yell out a number.
2 million.
2 million.
No.
A million?
A billion.
Hold on, thank you. Hold on to some. It's $100 million a year. Now remember what I said, we only find out about 1 in 20 cases. So you're closer than me. It's closer to $1 billion than it is to $100 million. There's $100 million that we know about. That's actually reported cases. This is a shocking number. This is San Diego money, right? This is legacy money. This is money that you've all been saving for your retirement, for your grandchildren's college, for the community, for the church, for everything. And it's leaving, and it's going overseas. It's astonishing. And so Kathy mentioned I'm one of the biggest advocates. I've actually been lucky enough, because of this position and Summer's kind of push behind this effort, that I've been invited to Washington to testify and to California, to Sacramento. And my message isn't friendly. It's that we all should be ashamed of ourselves that we're letting this happen, that we can all do better. And it's really a disgusting state of affairs in our country that we're letting this happen. And people are really trying to figure out how to stop this. So the best thing that I can do for you today is tell you what the most common scams are. That when you leave here today, what the greatest threat is, because only through that information, which is hot off the presses, right? It's not from an article I read or from some news story in Florida. This is what is happening right now to San Diego seniors. And the most common threat when you walk out of this meeting today is going to be the email that Kathy told you about. So it's either a pop-up message on your computer that says it's Microsoft. Has anyone gotten this?
Yeah.
And the message sometimes has volume and it says, don't shut your computer off. Has anyone gotten this message? And it basically says something's wrong with your computer.
Yes.
Call this phone number to call Microsoft. That is, and when I say that's the most common scam, I'm telling you that it's 80% of the scam activity in the country right now. So, we all have heard the warnings about Social Security or IRS scam. These are very small categories now. I'm telling you, this is how 80% of the scams are happening. And it's not happening to just one person here or one person there. This is happening to thousands of people. So the message also, before I get into the details of the scam, is that we all need to do better as a community, this group included, to reduce the stigma. To reduce the stigma for victims of these scams and all kinds of elder abuse, because the reason why people are falling for this stuff is not because they're stupid. Let's be blunt. That's what people say when it happens, right? I feel so stupid, I feel so embarrassed. Or sometimes, right, if this wasn't a scam talk and I was just here as a friend and I said, oh, did you see on the news last night, I saw this woman and she lost $300,000. People would naturally start laughing. That's what happens. And people say, how could she fall for that? And so I'm here to tell you that we have to be very careful, because I'm certain that someone in this room has fallen for something. And if we have that attitude, then people are going to be afraid to be honest about what's happened to them. And the reality is, to the question of how could someone fall for that, the answer to that question is because the scammers are so good at what they do. They are so sophisticated, and they are literally studying us from around the world. They're studying our behavior, they're studying our response to it, and they change their tactics every week. If they weren't criminals, you'd actually be like, wow, that's impressive. Like, I respect, like, you're pretty good at this. They are really good. And so the reason why they're so effective is because they're great at what they do, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about. And here's a bit of ammunition for all of you. Your grandchildren are falling victim at a higher rate than you are. That's not me just telling you that. That's the FBI. That's the FBI fraud report. The data tells us that the young people, the millennials, are falling victim to scams every single day. Now, they're losing less money. They're still have working years ahead of them so they can recover from their losses. And of course, emotionally, the impact isn't as great on them as it would be for a senior. We can all understand that. So that's why we focus on elder scams, because the impact is far greater and the losses are greater. But don't let, the younger people make you feel like this is something that's just happening to seniors. Younger people are on social media so much, so they're constantly getting ripped off. They're buying things, they're buying concert tickets, they're using all these apps and everything, and they're falling to scams constantly. This, I'm sure you've all gotten the toll roads text in the last couple of months. So, do you think, there's nothing there that a 20-year-old or a 75-year-old is going to fall for. That is a brilliant scam. And they're doing it during the holidays when everyone's driving around. We'll have some questions at the end when we get through the program, so please hold your thought. So these scams, so again, don't feel bad like, oh, I'm a senior, I fell for something, because I'm telling you, your grandchildren fell for the same thing, and I have. I'm here teaching people not to fall for scams, and I've opened the message or that says my Amazon package is late or whatever. So that all said, so we have to create a safe space for people to talk about what's happened to them. And back to the most common scam. I need to go through this whole scenario so that you understand all the red flags, that if something like this is happening to you, you know to just end your communication. People say, what should I do? The reason why the scammers get people in, and it's easy if it hasn't happened to you yet, to judge someone else and say, how did they fall for it? But there's so much more detail to what they're doing, and they're scaring the heck out of people. That's what the scammers are doing. So let's go back to the scenario, right? You've gotten the pop-up ad that says you're Microsoft, or you get the email from PayPal that says there's unauthorized charges, or the other most common one is McAfee or Norton antivirus, that it's time to renew your subscription. These are what we call the hook, right? Imagine, these scammers are phishing, and they're just trying to catch you on the line, and that's how it starts. So our big promo in San Diego County is don't get hooked. Pretty clever. I'm gonna spit our drink out up here, it's great. So don't get hooked. So that's the hook line, right? So they want you to call the phone number. Now you're talking to a company that you think is a technology company. You think you're on the phone with Microsoft, PayPal, McAfee, Norton, any of these companies. And here's the next layer to this. They need to check your computer out because something's wrong with your computer, and so they need to put remote access software on your computer. So they send you a link, and they want you to click on it, which allows them to control your mouse. Has anyone gotten this far?
Well, no, but I know they
Okay,
can do
and there's some hands going up, and this is very smart from the scammers because the programs they're using aren't illegal. It's the same program that the DA's office uses. If I have a technology issue here, I could call my IT department, and I could use these programs for them to come in and look at my laptop from downtown and see what's wrong with my computer. So there are legitimate reasons for these programs, right? So they get you to accept, and it could be on your cell phone, your iPad, or your computer. And they say, we need to do a scan, a free scan to see if you have a virus or whatever it is, right? So what do you think they're looking for once they're inside your computer? They're looking on your desktop, right? The little icon, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, because the next thing that they say is, oh my goodness, this isn't good. We've performed the free scan of your computer, but now there's a problem. We see that your Wells Fargo account or your Chase account is being compromised. The same hackers have, and you say, wow, how does this person know that I have Wells Fargo or Chase, right? So, again, very sophisticated. The next thing they do is will try to scare you. And this is what people don't talk about on the news and what people don't understand. They say the scariest thing that they could say. The most common thing right now is, the bad news is, right, your computer's been hacked, your bank accounts are in danger, and your identity is being used in an FBI case involving child pornography. Has anyone gotten this far? Okay, this is the most common scam. Or that your identity is being used to rent vehicles that the drug cartels are using to bring drugs across the border, right? So now it's gone from, oh, my computer has a little issue, to your name is involved in some massive FBI or Department of the Treasury case, and very scary, and now you and the people you love might be at risk for prosecution or child pornography, all these very scary things. What they will do now is, again, very ingenious by the scammers. They pass the phone or end that phone call, and Microsoft will say, we need to transfer you to Chase Bank's security team. So, right, this is because in your mind you're thinking, if this was a scam, this person wouldn't let me off the phone, right? No, they're very clever. They pass you to someone else in their scam organization who now says, well, I'm with Chase Bank or Bank of America, or I'm an investigator with the Department of Treasury. And what they do now is convince you that because you've been hacked, that you need to go get your money out of your bank accounts or your retirement accounts to save it. It's very clever, right? In the old days, they told you you won the Nigerian lottery, right? And everyone felt very greedy and said, oh, I'll $5 million in Nigerian lottery money. That sounds good. I'll go pay for that, right? People have gotten smarter, right? So now this is very smart. They're not taking advantage of people's greed. They're using fear and saying, you're going to lose all of your money unless you get it out. And further, they're telling people that someone at their bank is in on it. Every one of our victims is told to go to the bank with their cell phone on speakerphone. They'll say, put the cell phone in your purse and leave it on, because we want to hear you talking to the bank teller, because we think your bank teller might be in on this, right? They're trying to get you to be afraid, because your bank teller is going to ask you, are you sure you're not being scammed? But the scammer is going to tell you that ahead of time and give you a script to follow. It's very, very high-tech, very sophisticated schemes here. So they will have you withdraw $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 at a time, and then do what? You're here in Rancho Santa Fe. You've just withdrawn $30,000 from your bank account. You're here. Your money's here. How do they get our money if they are in India or China or the Caribbean?
Send it to somebody.
Right. Send it to somebody. So how do you send it? In a few ways. One is ask you to wire your money. Very commonly done. The other way is to physically send your money. They will tell you to FedEx or send UPS to package your money up and ship it. And ship it somewhere else in the United States. And it's actually a money laundering organization. So you send your money to Kansas, and that usually is another victim of a scam. that's been told to receive your money and then send it to somewhere else. The other most common thing that we're seeing right now is kind of shocking. It's actually couriers coming to your door. So what the organizations are doing is remember, they're posing as the Treasury Department or the bank. So they're saying, we're going to send a courier to pick up this money to secure it. And we'll send you a receipt, but we need to secure it in a Treasury account, and then we'll give it back to you when this investigation is over. And so they're sending couriers, and they're either hired by the organization. Right now, mostly people are being dispatched from the Los Angeles area, driving down and picking up boxes of cash. Or if they can't get a courier from their own organization, do you know who they're calling? Uber and Lyft drivers, yeah. And the Uber and Lyft drivers are going to pick up the money and then bring it to some parking lot and hand it to someone else that they don't know. It's shocking. And again, this is not happening like once a few months from now. My estimate is that right now, maybe 20 people in San Diego County are going through this exact scenario. It's that common. It's that common. Now, a couple of other big trends. I told you they're changing their tactics constantly. A few months ago, my FBI partners on our task force said, we've got a new trend that we're seeing. I think maybe because the bank tellers are getting wise to this and trying to warn people. But once the people have their money, they're not just asked to get cash, but they're being told to purchase gold bars, gold bullion. How are we doing this? Well, I was shocked again. This is all news to me just a few months ago. There are stores, there are precious metal dealers, there are jewelers, there are pawn shops where you could go buy gold coins that are worth, depending on their weight, right? $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. A gold bar, it looks like the size of a credit card. And they're worth a lot of money. So there's also websites where you could purchase these for that kind of money. So they're telling people to buy gold bars and again, wait for a courier or ship it. So again, this sounds scary, but now you are in the top 1% of people of knowing what the most common threat is. Now the other side, it's like a flow chart. Somewhere along that line within the scam, and maybe this was where Kathy's scammers were going with the PayPal, is there's an unauthorized charge and we need to refund you. And it's a $400 charge. And so they have you with that remote access software go to your banking, online banking, and they'll say, we're gonna put the $400 back into your account. And you're saying, okay, and you're looking at your online banking and you see your balance jump by $40,000. And the scammer then starts flipping out and saying, oh my gosh, I over-refunded you. And they'll blame you. They'll say, you forgot to put the decimal point in. And instead of $400, we sent you $40,000. And then again, they'll get scary. It's usually now someone with an Indian accent, and they're gonna say, oh my goodness, I'm gonna get fired. My wife just had a baby. We're gonna lose our job and be homeless. You need to can you please go to the bank and send back the money? You could even keep $1,000 of it if you want to, but can you please send back the $39,000? This is called the refund scam. Again, very common. And what they do on your computer is, there's a way to manipulate your computer so that your bank account really isn't changing, just your computer screen is. So that's one way they could do it, is remotely just changing your balance. But another very common, clever tactic they use is they'll transfer money from your savings account into your checking account. And you're not looking at that screen, but you're looking at your checking account, you see the balance jump from $2,000 up to $42,000, and you say, oh my God, my balance just jumped. So they're very cleverly just moving money around. It's your own money because they have access with that remote access software that you sent them. So very clever stuff. So what do we know at this point is, if anyone ever asks you, to wire money, to withdraw cash or buy gold, or that you've needed to refund some money, that's your cue right then and there to just hang up the phone. People say, what should I do? They can't hurt you. Even though they've scared you and convinced you that they can hurt you, they can't hurt you. You need to just end that communication. And then you need to figure out what's on your computer, right? Then you need to go, whether your grandchildren are probably most qualified to check your computer, but you could go to a reputable store. I was telling Kathy this morning, we have had victims that Google the Geek Squad. The scammers are putting bad phone numbers on Google searches faster than Google can get them off. Google tells us they're scrubbing their information constantly. But if you are savvy with your internet searches, do you notice when you search for Italy travel, the first 3 things that come up say sponsored, those are ads. Those are paid for. Then if you go lower, then you see the Italy Tourism Bureau or whatever, right? So if you search for the Geek Squad, the top 3 or 4 links are going to be ads. And some might be legitimate, but some are going to be from the bad guys who are putting those ads on to the Google search so that when you search for help, you get a phone number and you're walking right into the hands of another bad guy. That's scary, right? So you want to take your time and find the actual, you could call the Best Buy store maybe, verify that it's at that location in Encinitas, whichever location, or if it's a smaller device, just bring it in to the store and tell them you want to do a sweep of your cell phone or your laptop to make sure there's no remote access software or any malicious things on your computer. The other common scam that we're still seeing is the grandparent scam. And again, this is one where people say, how could someone fall for this? I know my granddaughter's voice. And then people are talking about AI. So this is something we do need to be cautious about. Do they have computers that can fake the voice of someone you love? Yes, they do. But just think about that practically. They still don't know all the information that you and your granddaughter have, right? So, and the bottom line is that the scenarios themselves, if people just take a breath and digest what's happening to them, they're nonsensical, right? That someone might be in an overseas jail needing bail money, right? So it's just pause and reflect, call your grandchild. There's some few small cases where someone actually is on vacation in Mexico and they might be looking at their Facebook and then using that. But just call someone, right? Call and verify that someone's safe. But no one would be calling in that type of emergency anyway, right? To say someone's stuck in jail. The way that they're doing it now, it's not through AI. What it is that the initial call is usually just a frantic, screaming person. So, you see on the news, they got the call from their granddaughter. But in reality, when we follow up with these victims, they usually say, you know what, my granddaughter really wasn't on the phone for more than a second. I heard a bunch of screaming, and then a very smooth-talking lawyer got on the phone and said, I'm here in Mexico. You're, again, very scary. Your granddaughter was in a car accident, and the woman that she hit was pregnant and is going to suffer a miscarriage. I mean, they're awful, awful, awful things. That's why people are falling victim. It's not just, hey, I'm calling you out of the blue and I want all your life savings. Can I have it? No, it's very sophisticated. And I can tell you that the other misconception is this is not happening to people with dementia and Alzheimer's. This is happening to this demographic of young, vibrant seniors who are active in their community, driving, working, raising grandkids, smart professionals. And the example I like to share, which is common, she's not a unicorn, but we had a victim in Carlsbad last year who was actually a professionally trained accountant. And she's in her late 60s, young and beautiful, and living in a beautiful house, independent, and she lost $1.4 million last year to the exact scam that I told you about, that she felt convinced over a number of weeks that she was caught up in this horrible identity theft scenario where she was hacked and their bank accounts were at risk, and there was this horrible criminal case, and she was being sent, and the scammers usually combine all of the things. She wired money, she sent cash, she bought gold, and she came and talked to our task force. I'm telling you, she could be the smartest, most vibrant person in this room right now, more so than me. And she fell victim, and she can't believe it. She can't believe it. She says, if only I had some of this information, if only I would have had, known that the second someone mentioned gold, I would have been like, oh, I'm out. This is crazy. I'm not going to buy gold for anyone, right? So this can happen to anyone, and that's hopefully a lot of information. Again, not to scare you, but for you to feel emboldened and for you to go out and teach everyone. And I'll turn it over to questions in a second. Let me just see if I've missed anything very important. Oh yeah, two more quick things. The other ways they're getting our money. One is gift cards. When we started this 5 years ago, gift cards was actually the most common way. That once you fell for the scam, they would send people to Walmart or Home Depot or Lowe's to buy thousands of dollars in gift cards, and then just scratch the number off the back and give that to the scammers, and they could pull the money off of the cards. We're seeing a decline in that activity because something else has popped up with technology. Again, I told you the scammers are studying us and constantly evolving. Does anyone want to guess the most common way they're getting our money now, in addition to those cash and gold pickups? Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. So a lot of people think, well, I've heard about Bitcoin, but I don't understand it, so I don't have to worry about that. I wish that were the case. There's two very simple ways that they're getting it. One is they could talk you through on your computer how to open up a bank account, basically, where you could just transfer money from your online banking into another bank account, but that other bank account is cryptocurrency and it's gone. Cryptocurrency means that they could walk in or turn their computer on in another country on the other side of the planet and take all that money from that account. The other way, which is shocking, is Bitcoin ATM machines. Has anyone seen or used these? So they are popping up in most convenience stores now. If you go to a 7-Eleven, I'm sure within a 5-minute drive of here, Circle K, 7-Eleven, gas stations, there's like a regular ATM machine and another machine that looks like one of those Coinstar machines. And you could put your cash in there. What the scammers do is send you a barcode, and they'll say, go to this location, find the Bitcoin ATM machine, and you scan your barcode, and then the machine identifies you, and it says, feed your cash to me, please. These are pictures of them. These are actual from our cases. This one here, you can see there's cash there. We had a victim who put $15,000 of cash into the machine and ate it all at one time. And what it does is convert the money instantly into Bitcoin so that someone else on the other side of the planet can receive it. And you'll start to notice as you go into convenience stores, because of this job now, I've gotten very nosy. And I'll ask the clerk, I said, do you ever see seniors walking in here and putting money in the machine? And they say, yeah, it's funny you should ask that. That happens all the time. So luckily in California, they just passed a law this year to limit the transaction amounts to $1,000 a day per machine. But we're already seeing victims being told to drive to 5 or 6 different locations and put $1,000 in each machine. So again, no one, for any legitimate reason, will ever ask you to pay or send money using these machines. If anyone asks you to pay with a gift card or pay with crypto, again, end that communication. There is no legitimate purpose for these, right? Gift cards are for giving gifts, not for making payments. And these crypto machines are 1,000% for fraud. There's no other legitimate reason. So that if anyone is asking you to use this stuff, you just end it. Just end the phone call, block them, Don't think, oh, the FBI is going to go after this person. Just delete the phone numbers, block them on your phone, end it. Delete the emails, just end your communication. If the money is still in your pocket, you're safe. They cannot hurt you. That's the takeaway, okay? So the last thing I want you to know is Adult Protective Services. If you're listening to anything I've said today, and this is just great for this organization to know in general, for any of the types of elder abuse, you don't have to know or think that a crime is occurring. This is just if you suspect that someone is at risk. Sometimes, right, someone has an adult child come back to the house that may be in one of those risk categories that I talked about, mental health or addiction, and maybe they stop coming to meetings, and you're like, wow, we haven't seen so-and-so in a long time. Maybe their house, you know, the flowers and the shrubs aren't being taken care of. There could be something going on. It's an anonymous phone call. It's not like calling 911. You could be anonymous, because most people say, I don't want to be nosy. I'm telling you, be nosy. This is the best way that we could get people on the radar screen of county services, right? It's how we reduce that underreporting. And so that phone number, Kathy, I'll give to you, and you can email to the group, is 1-800-339-4661. So if I've triggered anything, whether it's you're concerned about a friend that might be falling victim to the scams, I didn't mention another common one, which is the romance scam. And that, believe it or not, is the most devastating one, because people emotionally and financially are ruined. And this could be someone that they've met on a legitimate dating site or just on Facebook or LinkedIn. There are predators out there that are posing as wealthy gentlemen from Rancho Santa Fe who happen to be closing a business deal on another continent. So that's why they're not face-to-face and can't have coffee, but they develop these relationships. They often turn to investment scams. There's a whole nother issue of these cases which are hitting the news now called pig butchering. 60 Minutes is profiling this. These are Bitcoin crypto investment scams where people, whether it's through trust or friendship or romance of someone they've met online, convinces them that they have an investment idea, and they're convincing people to download an app that looks like Charles Schwab, like you actually see your bank account, and they'll say, just start by sending me $1,000. And the returns are astronomical. You're making 100% on your money. And so they get more and more money. And this is the scam that actually people are, regardless of their age, are losing the most money on in the country right now. And you may have seen this, they're talking a lot about this now. The bad guys are in these scam call centers in Vietnam and Cambodia and Myanmar. It's a fascinating thing that's happening. But these are part of romance victims. So you want to be on the lookout, right? If your friend all of a sudden comes in and is talking about a new romance, or, oh, I'm getting savvy, I'm investing in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. These are just red flags. And you could call Adult Protective Services and say, I'm concerned about a friend or a neighbor. So that's a lot of information packed into a short amount of time. And I'm happy to take questions if anyone has any.